Let's just get rid of that. It's amazing to see you. Your
Yeah.
smiley face is an incredible energy for me to tap into today. So,
Well, we've been in contact with each other. We've lost contact with each other, but we were right at the start of this journey. We were talking together, and it's been a fascinating journey. And I know one of the key things that you've been focused on is God's children. I know it's God's creations, but God's children.
Yeah.
Protecting them, educating them, protecting them. And I know that you've had a battle to try and get through to people because of the fact that the system is set up against us.
Yeah. So I mean, there was a sense of naivety. I have to readily admit that. Do you know what I mean? That, and I was so invested into the system, not knowing it was a system. I mean, with all due respect, you know, I was mentioning earlier, I'm playing this thing now as a game. They know that I know that they know that I know that they know that I'm coming because they have all of the information at their hands with the tech that we're feeding them, and they have the ability to see what's happening. I got told a long time ago, well, not necessarily a long time ago. See, if I was going to look at this, it's putting a jigsaw puzzle together with every interaction that we have, every what's the correct word? Impression. You're able to put the jigsaw together. It's whether or not you choose to retain those pieces of information. So I'd been invested into the computer industry heavily. I was groundbreaking in the football arena for men's couture. And then coming out of that was very close to the film industry. So, you know, my first business partner won an Oscar with Alicia Vikander. And then I was with Leon Clarence that did Pirates of the Caribbean and the Bourne Ultimatum, and recently had done, and very interestingly had done, Sense8 with Netflix, which was with the Wachowskis, talking about the way people can use other skill sets and that sense of, so they've been, you know, subconsciously they've been showing us this all along, because in pure narcissistic fashion, which seems to be the buzz thing at the moment, one, they can't lie. Narcissists are shocking liars. Right? And two, they have this power trip by telling you what they're doing as they're going along. That's the juice for them. The fact that they, you know, go, we've been cheating. I'm not cheating on you now, but you listen to the words and you can take those bits out. You can start to put together. So,
well, you look at that skit from The Simpsons about Justin Trudeau being taken out by the convoy of lorry drivers. Yeah. That was in 1999.
Yeah, I must admit, I've never been a great TV watcher. I've never been into that element to me. I left school with no qualifications whatsoever, but I ran £100 million companies because based on, you know, a high service level and transparency. I mean, the term truth, trust, transparency, and love was born on that show. You know, which I've then been able to expand with to give respect is to earn respect, concurrent activity, efficient, effective application of energy, discipline, structure, teamwork. You know, if you put those 10 superpowers around you, it's a great way to operate in this kind of world of darkness. So, you know, back to where we were, which was waking up with Hillary Clinton eating children and stuff. It was just like, what? Suddenly the realization was in at the deep end, which was where I normally was. And at that time, I'd re-engaged with a guy that I'd worked with in the computer industry, and I'd been offered a software solution that would protect our children online and would protect ourselves. And you know, when COVID came, there was that sense of, and it was really interesting because it's like, you know, the way the word virus was used and how we were at that time. You know, we'd just been set up with. The Amazon was on fire, and then Australia was on fire. They were walking us into this kind of disaster situation. Yeah. And then there was this kind of look over your shoulder, and there's a virus coming, but didn't really take it seriously until Boris went 330 million. And it was like, hang on, that's the same 33 that I heard over with Hillary Clinton and her children munching brigade that are over there. You know, you start to put these symbols together, and all of a sudden the picture starts to appear in front of you. And so I went straight to government at that time via Damian Collins, who I've called out on a number of occasions, and via Whitehall. and stating, so listen, you guys at that time being in a space where I thought it was a believable story, and you protect the country against the virus. Mm-hmm. Our children are going to be stuck on their phones 24/7, going into all manner of debauchery. They're 2 clicks away from pornography. What was being spilled into the internet was confusion at that time. Our children of personalities are being constructed, in the fake news that Helen Lamprey at Vodafone had been discussing. And I got silenced. It was like, it's children. And at that time, nothing separates me from anybody else. I'm a father of 2. I was going out at the time with a teacher that was front line and going to be really strong. I mean, listen, the way teachers have had to struggle over the last 18 months, you try and teach children who are now addicted to this thing.
I tell you, your brain works in a certain way. I'm going to share something with you on the screen.
Yeah.
I want to know your thoughts. Ireland, first lockdown was on the 27th of March, 2020.
Yeah.
And the restrictions ended on the 22nd of January, 2022, which is exactly 666 days.
Totally. I mean, it is.
The UK, first lockdown, 23rd of March, 2020. Ended the restrictions on the 19th of January 2022. Again, 666 days.
Yeah.
Is that a coincidence?
No, listen. As someone I cared about very much said to me, there are no coincidences.
No.
I understand now. I spoke to a guy last night, and I'm not going to name it. It was a really interesting conversation. The thing about the narcissists, as I say, they come to warn you. He came to give me a tap on the shoulder. That's what his words last night. After sending me a letter that said, in the word construction, I've had 6 of my friends killed on this journey. And I said to him last night, well, I don't want to be your friend. And
yeah, exactly.
You see in that space. So there are no coincidences, but what there are digital constructs that are unavoidable, and you've got repeat patterns. I mean, this is the thing. This is the point I'd really like to get across to most people, is the people that we believe are at the heart of this are really not very clever people at all.
No.
Right? What they've done is they've taken the data and they try and use the data and massage the data in such a way that it's the Wizard of Oz story. Lars Sylvester was my first business partner in film. They did Return to Oz. We are wandering down the yellow brick road at this moment in time, getting closer and closer and closer. And there's just going to be this little broken child. And my belief is it's David the Rothschild. Roth is red is child. I mean, it's been coming to me, I swear to you, since I've got into this sense of, I was told by a very beautiful person in America, that sense of spiritus mundi, that sense of being aligned and conversing in such a manner where you let the words flow through you. So,
well, you're living proof that you don't need a degree to be clever. And the world has educated you that you do. And you look at these idiots that are running the world from parliament, from government, who've all went to the same university, all got the same degrees, and have got zero common sense.
Yeah.
And now, that's unique, 100% common sense and 0 degrees.
Yeah. I mean, that you give me and you a blank piece of paper in half an hour, we'd have started a business.
Yeah, sure.
That's the reality of where they are. You put people in front of a book and the only way that they can operate. But that's that classic structure of narcissism. I have to keep you stupid because I'm not clever.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
And then when you look at this and the pantomime of how the pantomime's rolled out, and this is that sense of, we'll come back to the software and come back to the ebook. There's that sense of, they messed around with the greatest. I mean, I've got to tell you this, right? Boris Johnson and Joe Biden. I don't want to talk about America, but I look at the UK ones, and they must be looking at this because that they're being controlled.
Yeah,
and they're only being controlled on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure they're sitting there going, as I was in my narcissistic relationships as a codependent.
Yeah,
equally part of that Argentinian dance. Let's not avoid the responsibility of ourselves, because we've been listening to this for the last so many years. We're waking up to the fact and then as you have that moment where you go, what? And your whole world falls apart. But then all of a sudden you begin to open your eyes and you can see everything. I think we have a responsibility. And the point I was making about Boris and the government is that they must themselves be sat there going, I can't go out and say that. You're really telling me we've got to the point now where you want me to say that we had a part. I mean, if Johnson, I say this, if Johnson had walked out and said, Charlie, listen, my team in there were on their knees trying to save this country. We had a few bills for a morale booster. I think most of the fellas, certainly the fellas in this country, might have gone, well, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
You know, we've been down in the trenches a few times before. And if, you know, if the big man had walked through the door and gone, listen, there's a crate of beers here, fellas, keep it under your hats, but let's get fighting. Because they were fighting for us.
Yeah.
You know, the ones that are in this think in a naive structure. Do you know what I'm saying? I kind of look at this whole process and there's a them and us.
The minute the parties came out, I said to my team, ignore the party. Have a look what they're trying to get through government right now. They'll be using this as a distraction and they'll offer that up to distract for something they're doing far worse.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and it's again, with all due respect, the whole lorry driving stuff that, you know, I mean, it's a classic way of feeding hope to the codependent.
Yeah.
It's going to change and it's going to get better. Then they dash you again and then they dash you again and then they dash you again. Do you know what we need to do? See, for me, the vehicle of God's creation, the music, the software, the ebook is about generating funds that allow us, the likes of ourselves and the creatives that sit around us, the revenue streams to be able to create our own content that doesn't have the, because what we have to do is we have to stop looking at that and focus on building something new, because it's not for the faint-hearted being awake. You know, I mean, it's
exactly.
You know, I mean, it's a tough gig. You know, it's leaders of men, it's inspirers of people rather than leaders. You know, but it's a really interesting topic that I'm gonna brush along the very gritty edge of, because you know, the fact that we've sexualized our children has subliminally included all of us in that space of acceptance. Do you know what I mean? It's that, you know, when you sit there and go, everyone's this whole construct. So I've called out I walked through the doors of the NSPCC. I've called him out. He's the parliamentary paedophile inquiry. I mean, listen, I've got no problem, boys. You can come and get me. You know, I'm very happy to pass over to the next side. My mum's over there, bless her soul, and all my friends are. So I fear not death. You know, if you want to come and have a crack at me, then let's do this. He was head of the parliamentary inquiry back in the Cyril Smith days. But the NSPCC have been creating a software that teaches adults how to recognize children online, vulnerable children online, win their trust and talk to them. And I went to Peter, you're teaching paedophiles how to engage with kids.
Yeah.
And he went to me, that's absurd. And I said, listen, I'm going to give you another 24 hours to digest that statement to me, because what's absurd is that you can sit in that position and create that software and then tell me it's absurd for me to put the two together.
Yeah.
He ignored me for 8 months.
Yeah.
And in the end, I walked through the door, was not sat at his chair during COVID. The numbers at the NSPCC very swiftly, and I don't mean to bounce, are 3 million kids every year call the NSPCC. Right. Let's look at that number. Well, that's so kids under 10 are addicted to Roblox and Minecraft, right? Kids aren't kids anymore. Sorry, and I don't want to use that word. Children. I should stop using. So it's my own. You know, I have to battle that myself to make sure I'm not using the incorrect terminology. Children above the age of 14 aren't children anymore. Yeah. So you've got a 4-year gap window where there are only 3.75 million children in this country. And you're telling me that 3 out of every 4 are ringing the NSPCC when only 1 million are getting through. Only 200,000 get any support, which means Sir Peter Wanless got knighted for an 8% success rate of protecting children. No one gets knighted for 8%. And let me add this to the mix is, I've got 2 of the most beautiful children in the world. You can go and see my Instagram page. They are loaded. I can't get them to ring me. Yeah. Children don't make phone calls. No. So who is ringing the NSPCC? No one. I'm not saying no one, but these manifestation of figures, this projection of that everyone's a paedophile, they're all around us, and the internet is terrible, is this pantomime of fear that's driving our children into their bedrooms, thus to be preyed upon by the 21st century child catcher, which is the algorithms that pour through listings. I mean, there's a guy called, and I don't mean to information dump, but that's sadly part of, listen, that's part of my symptoms of being involved in a narcissistic world so acutely, that you're always in that place of having to over-explain, because you're talking to people that actually, I didn't know at the time, so you're talking to people that have no care and consideration for what you're saying.
Sure.
And in the end, you try and say it in so many different ways that can turn you crazy. Now, Dylan Collins is an organization called Super Awesome Man, where they're targeting 500 million children every month with the top 300 companies with marketing strategies to hit those children at that age, which is mentally manipulating those children to a point where they'll be indoctrinated and embedded with trauma, childhood trauma, CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, awaits them in the future. You know, that's Dr. Evil levels. And that's, forgive me, when I listen to the Project Rescues, the Child Rescue Coalition, I called her out, which is Carly Asher Yost and her friend Blake Lyden. I've been to all of these people going, we need to look at this problem. Where was I going? Reboot me, Charlie. Where was I going with the trauma, with the CPTSD? Yeah. So you've got 500 million children being targeted. So the point I was trying to make was, forgive me for the children that are being trafficked and harvested, if all of those numbers are really true, because the human construct is about protecting children deep within the indoctrination, deep within the heart space. If people go to their heart space, it's about protecting. But 500 million children monthly being mentally manipulated by companies whose headline is "Children are everywhere, so are we." That's the area that we really need to be focusing on, is getting mum and dad to look at the problem. What are our children digesting from a technology position? What's in the gameplay? How is our child going to be? Wooja have just built this new bodysuit with a six speaker stereo unit. They actually advertise the fact that you'll feel every bullet every bomb. Right. Yeah. Well, go and speak to a war veteran, because they felt every bullet and every bomb, and most of them are sat in the streets with post-traumatic stress disorder. Yeah. Our children are being embedded through gameplay with a nervous system damage. And these organisations aren't even hiding the fact. They're actually stating in their own writing. So fast forward.
Just on that subject, I noticed yesterday, you know, I forget what, because I don't play these games, but on one of these video games that is FIFA, whatever it is, football game, they've actually built in now where footballers collapse with heart problems in the game. I mean, it's sick. These people are sick.
Well, my perspective on that is this, I mean, you learn all your pieces of information everywhere. A fella last night said to me, listen, what you've got to do is you've got to make peace with your sexual secrets. He said, you know, whatever porn it is you like. So listen, I've got to tell you, everybody, whilst I'm on the show, I've done all the flavours. I've been to all the bar stools in my life, and that's it. You know, my sense of celibacy going forward is what's going to keep me protected. So let's bolt that hole a little bit, if we pardon the pun. But I saw it with the guy Mendy and I'm seeing it. I'm going to tell you this now, right? With Greenwood. Who's the boy Greenwood? Yeah?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think you've got breaks in the camp at Man United. No one's been, listen, they're owned by an organisation that partnered and ran the Zapta Corporation, which was yours with George Bush. Right? Yeah. You know, I mean, they're at the epicenter of the Red Devils. They're at the epicenter of this worship element to it. I think the footballers that you've seen collapsed have been given an ultimatum. You either do as we say, because we've backdoored your mobile phone with the same 13,000 images that we called out Reed Hastings, and your viewers can go and look at that. If you Google Reed Hastings, it will state that there was a fictitious report done where 13,000 images were found on his mobile phone. You know, so this sense of, if you tell the world that everyone's a paedophile, and then you have to make sure that everyone's going to toe the line then, because this story had to stay in place and they had to have some sense of control. That I think the ones that are going, excuse my French, but fuck this, I'm not playing along with your game, are being It was really strange, wasn't it? Do you know? I mean, I looked at the blood coming out, and I'm just looking at this and going, I'm looking at everything critically. I'm looking at everything critically. I'm looking at some of these lads. Aguero, when he gave up his career, was heartbroken. All right, and I don't mean that he was heartbroken. I think he was the one that. Listen, they know that if they've got a secret in the closet, and they come back and lean on that secret, and then they lean on that bit. Everyone knows that everyone's looking at the world at this moment in time as that everyone is in their worst possible representation. I think the drive by America, and this is where this is coming from, right? This is the bottom line of this, is America's broke. I mean, it is so skint, it's unreal. So Amazon's broke. That Elon Musk, I'd love to see his company bank account. So I think they have stretched them. They've like a classic narcissist, shocking with money. They've overstretched themselves. I think there's a guy called Charles Heath has written a wonderful book called The Collapse of the American Empire. And you know, Amazon are delivering in 20 minutes on products that have no delivery costs. You can't run a business like that for any length of time. So I think what they've done is they've seen data as being the new oil. They've looked to use an organisation called TeamViewer, who are on the front of Manchester United, who have got 600,000 customers, but 2.5 billion downloads. So we've done an update on our mobile. And we've downloaded a remote access system. So everything we touch, everything we touched that we thought was our data was being protected by GDPR, the new data protection system, they've got around that by sticking a remote access. So it doesn't matter that the websites you go on are protecting you. Whatever you touch on this thing is going back to the central computer. Thus, they're able to use that data. They get first dibs on that data and start to move it around. It's the way America sees itself as coming out of this. The more or the bigger the pantomime you deliver, the more people are sat at home typing. You create a virus where people are fearful. They end up like me in my bedroom most of the time, working on, we're not necessarily working on this, but playing the same games that you're recognizing that are sending the same message. And before we know it, we're living in a narcissist playground. And that's crazy making, because the world in itself at this moment is, Richard Grannon calls it word salad, where people just literally throw a variety of different words and experiences at it. And it's like none of that makes sense, which isn't too dissimilar to speaking to me sometimes, because once you awaken and you get to that level of where all the true information is, it is moving around at some place. And it's that artistry of getting into that space and cleansing yourself, getting aligned to God, which is where we have back to the God's creation element to it, and being critically thinking about what we're doing, because the mobile phone has made us incredibly lazy. You know, we're at that stage where we remember to stick 20p in a box to use the phone, and it went round like this. Well, I used to remember my phone numbers then. Now we don't have to. We don't know from a logistical point of view and getting our bearings. Most people can't move from A to B without having a sat nav on. You know, those basic skill sets that we're born with, those intuitive skill sets. You know, we're children, and that's the element of protecting our children. Is because they're born with everything they need to transfer through this world. That's why the likes of us with no formal education do so well in a point of representation, that because we're still in tune with the skill sets that we were born with. The difficulty is, I suppose, that where I've looked at the dopamine addiction and understanding. The one thing that I haven't qualified just yet is the injection of dopamine, which is very similar to control, which is what they look to do. They look to smash the receptors open. One would assume, as in a heroin addiction, that if they blow the receptors open of mum and dad, then our children are already born in that, like a heroin addict would be bearing a heroin addicted child. They're already bearing that, hence why we're seeing 5G and this speeding up and this constant flow. Is there trying to keep our children in that locked in space of and do it at such a time when they are the theta stage, when they're most receptive. So it's enough information dumped quite heavily there, but hopefully that makes sense.
It does, and it's very, very important that we do protect our children. as we move forward from the old world that we're moving out of into the new world, the one thing I've learned with Justin, because I got a second chance from my first three children, I was not there when they grew up, but with Justin, I've been there, is love and time with children does so much more good than I ever gave it credit for.
Yeah.
The first time round with me, I threw money at problems rather than love and time. Yeah. And that doesn't do anything.
Well, I think we're sharing we share such a similar path, which is, I think that's really interesting. I think the people that are coming to the center of this have essentially danced with the devil.
Yeah.
And understand. You know, my oldest two, I would say exactly that. I threw money at it now, and the relationships are sadly paused at this moment in time. They're not broken, they're paused, you know. Yeah. Where my younger children, you know, having had that stuff stripped away from me, all I could give them was time and love.
That's right.
Which was a lesson for me to then look back. I mean, I'm in a situation now where I've not been able to see my kids consistently over the last year, which, if I'm honest, has supported the fact that we've kind of pulled us apart slightly. Grant, who's married to my second wife and who is dad to them, is a wonderful one. We have such a great relationship. I'd argue at this moment in time, probably a better dad than me, to be able to give some balance. You know, maybe I'll be a little bit overprotective with what I'm learning. Do you know what I mean? So the universe there has provided that kind of perfect opportunity for me to focus on protecting children as a whole, whilst I know mine are being looked after in that space. And as you say, that consistency of time. So, you know, if I was going to give advice to parents, which is hopefully what we're looking to do right now, is, you know, look at the tech as a positive, truly positive remote control between you and the universe. Understand what you're looking at, and more importantly, what you're putting into it. You know, I'm coming up with a thought process of doing a Just Love Friday, where every Friday all we post is positive messages and messages of love, so we can twist the algorithm of negativity back into that space where we're using it for us. You know, is the content age appropriate? What are you watching? What are the parents taking in? Because more often than not, how we feel as a whole resonates into our children, because we're the dominant energy force as being a bigger construct. So as adults, who are you listening to? What are you watching? Are you critically thinking about?
There's one very good test that you can do to see if you're an addict or not, and that is with the mobile phone.
Yeah.
When you wake up in the morning, see if you can leave it for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
In the morning before you look at it.
Yeah.
And when you get to the 30 minutes, in me, I thought I could do another 30 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's a very good test, because we get so used to just waking up and checking our phone.
But this is an interesting thing, because that's the duality of the situation. It's understanding this is the gateway to everything that you need in your life.
Yeah.
Right. It's that sense of how am I using this? Am I seeing this as an addiction, or am I controlling this from that perspective? What am I imprinting into the digital universe? Because it's understanding that, and that's the beauty of that tool, is we've been connected for the last 18 months, but it seems in our stories as we talk to one another, we've been connected our whole life.
Sure.
Because we come from that particular paradigm of people that have excelled, learned the lessons, because lessons are never taught. You've got to learn those things, come out of that, and now have a sense of responsibility to humanity to want to go back and say, listen, we can, you know, it's a really interesting thing. I posted a message with Kevin Hart in the other day, and I'm kind of using these things where people talk about the fact that you can only learn lessons through pain. You learn through love.
Yeah.
You learn through inspiration and encouragement. You don't have to. There is no way on God's earth you have to feel pain to learn a lesson.
No.
It's just been constructed that way because those that sit at the top of the pyramid, if we're going to call it a pyramid, and we should, feel so much pain that they want to desensitize everyone around them because it triggers that in themselves. Do you know, that's what the narcissist does, and it tries to construct all the best bits about us, so it doesn't have to look at us and go, I'm a failure, or this comes from childhood trauma right the way down it. So I think there's that sense of don't fear the phone, understand at this moment in time what's coming out of it because of how you've been manipulated to to be using it, that there's a negative element to it. So what can I do instantly to change that? Well, let's focus on the fact that everything I put into it is going to be positive, and it's going to come from a position of love, which is what people have been saying. This whole war gets won by love. But it's where the war is waged, and the war is waged efficiently through this. So I'd almost say this. I'd say the polar opposite. Get up. The first thing you do when you wake up is go to your social media and post something positive, because you know that those people that wake up that don't know this message, the first thing they see is going to be your post, and it's going to be Charlie's happy face, like I saw when I saw it. It's lifted me completely. So it's let's rather than fear the tool, let's us that lead, because that's what I do with a group. Up in the morning, bang, 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 something positive, real good message for the day, get people thinking. Those people are liking, those people are bringing their own comments in. All of a sudden, since the moment we've opened our eyes, we've actually created a little energy force that's out there growing and growing. Now, that's a positive way to jump out of it. And then we can impart that into the rest of the space. Otherwise, your energy force when you wake up first thing in the morning is so pure because nothing's been able to attach it. That's what you should be using. That's what you should be at that time. Fuel that phone of yours and fuel that audience of yours. And let's see how that works.
It depends, because with me, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I give thanks to God for everything He's given me. Yeah. Rather than moan about the things I haven't got. Yeah. I thank God for my wife, for my family, for my health. Yeah. And thank God
good
for
looks. Don't forget him good looks.
Yes, Stevie Wonder said I was the best looking.
Listen, I tell you, listen, if I take the beard off, we ain't too far apart, brother.
Yeah. But,
I think I'd say this. I'd really have to say this. I think if I look back 18 months ago, the relationship or how that had manifested itself, I probably wasn't ready for your energy, your positivity. I was that person in that space of going, I was very much in a negative space back then. Do you know what I mean? And when people, and that's what happens is people turn off positivity and they turn off love because it kind of makes them, it exposes those bits in you, and that's for the audience, that sense of pushing through that. I mean, let's do this together. I mean, I've got a flyer being put together. Let's push out Just Love Friday. Let's see if we can get 500,000 of your audience on Friday to send out 5 texts that are about love, or 5 posts that are about love into the internet, and let's see how many lives that we could change every Friday doing that. And then we brought that down to Fridays and Wednesdays, and if we brought that down to the first 15 minutes of every day, post 5 posts of love, that the mobile phone would look a completely different thing.
In 1965. My grandfather, God rest his soul, said to me as a grandson, I was 5 years old. He said, if you can make one person smile every day of your life, you've had a wonderful life. That was in 1965, before the mobile phones came along, before social media. And his way was very often just letting somebody cross the road. Yeah. Just smiling at somebody in the street. Just saying good morning. He was an old-fashioned gentleman, said good morning to everybody.
Yeah. Honestly, Charlie, it is, and I'm saying it beaming because our energy is so connected. You could go back on my Instagram, there's a video of me sat on a bench, a guy called Billy Brooks. He was a cyclist. And I said exactly the same thing. I was looking at this at a point. I was in that point where the doors have been opening really swiftly for me just over these last few days or so, weeks or so. Do you know what I mean? But I sat there and I was thinking, there was that point of failure. But that's exactly what I said. You know what? If I make one person smile every day, after having lived the life that I've lived with such negativity in it and such loss, that has to be a victory.
Yeah,
that has to be.
But even today, even though you see in restaurants, whole families looking at their phones. You see on trains, people on their phones. Nobody's making eye contact. We need to get back to saying good morning, good afternoon, smiling.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what, the feel-good factor you get into yourself, rather than sending a WhatsApp or emojis to somebody, just say hello to somebody. Yeah, an old lady who probably nobody talks to.
Yeah, I work at the at the Cancer Research charity shop. It was part of the reward package I got from the relationship breakdown. you know how these things work. That you end up, strangely enough, in a legal system that you then, and that's there's a show on its own for that at a later date. But I play that game as I walk down the town. I play the good morning game. It's like, how many good mornings can I get?
Yeah.
I tell you, working in that charity shop, there is such a purity of people that revolved around that sense of rejuvenating our clothing, our sense, to me amongst the older, and I'm getting close to that brigade myself. Each day brings us a little bit nearer, but people that are not addicted to the dopamine of the mobile device. And we have to remember that everybody that we're talking about, and I'm talking about everyone that's even sat on the dark side, we are all victims of an indoctrination that's been handed down for years and years and years. That's the perspective that we have to look at in this. There are no winners and losers. There are just victims of different levels.
Sure.
Do you know, and understanding that those people are looking. So let's just take that, because I think it's an incredible statement. We need to be making eye contact with people.
100%.
But people that have been on this, cheeky little like somewhere, cheeky little inbox. Well, how's your day? Do you know what I mean? They're all secrets and devious little lies. Do you know? And people that lie can't look in the eyes of other people. Do you know? And so when you look at this and go, I look at COVID and the masks. The one thing that the mask did was make you look in the eyes of somebody, because you had nowhere else to look on the face. Do you know what I'm saying? So in every deemingly negative situation, there is always a positive to be drawn from it. I think with the tube, this one place we should have been wearing masks down there. I mean, the air quality of the underground is absolutely disgusting. So you look at these areas and go, what has, dare I say, the darkness been doing over the last 2 years with COVID? Well, I think we've got some respectful boundaries back in place where people have been able to get some personal space. I think it's made people that ordinarily wouldn't look into the eyes of others have to. There's absolutely a number of downsides to it. I think it's put us into a position where people are caring about the elderly more, because if you say to somebody you can't see something, instantly they want to see it more. I think there are some really empowering lessons. I think the people that we need to listen to, Tristan Harris, Google can manipulate 2 billion people with 50, 25 to 30-year-old white guys. Fact. Listen to that. Listen to what he said. The algorithm's out of control. They are out of control. And America doesn't know how to re-control them, because with all due respect to the American market, that's run by narcissists.
Oh, Damian, it's good to catch up with you again.
It's
been a journey.
Well, I hope that was informative.
Keep up the good work, because the protection of our children is the most important thing.
Listen, with all due respect, Charlie, listen, in the grand scheme of things, I've known this since I started 18 months ago. The ability to change minds en masse is going to be all but impossible. What I've got to do is I've got to change the mentality of the people that are pulling those strings, and I'm getting closer and closer. And the more I call those people out in public, the more I'm going to shine the light on it. I'm going to shine the light. The next person I shine the light on is going to be one of the most important people in the world, because I'm going to ask him if he said, and I'll tell you this, I'm direct with The Rock, I'm direct with Bill Gates, I'm direct with Donald Trump. I'm one person away from those. I mean, just very swiftly, how the universe works. Right? So there's a guy called Adam Weinstein that I'm connected to. The universe nudged me at 3 o'clock in the morning to see a video of Trump on his plane. Now, I'll tell you now, with all due respect, Trump stood right at the front for the protection of children. There are 350,000 disadvantaged children that Vodafone put online, that Scott Harris of BlackRock, who's their largest investor, when I said to him that his organisation would be embroidered into one of the largest child abuse scandals, shut the door and blocked me straight away. These people know what they're doing. And Trump's the guy to lead us into a different space. And there are a couple of projects that I've got, and some really damning information. It isn't necessarily damning, it's the truth. Do you know, this sense of understanding that we can bring the truth to the fore. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. So listen, I really, really appreciate the time afforded. It's amazing to see your face, honestly, to feel your energy is incredible.
It's been one hell of a journey, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. It's been incredibly challenging, but very rewarding.
I think it's once you align to your purpose and that sense of understanding that and it takes time to construct. You've done this. You've got hours, you've got months of content. You only ever speak the truth, nothing but the truth. And you're accountable for every word you say. We are the future for people to be able to believe in, because we're about bringing people up together. We're not about standing on top of them and dominating them. This is about bringing people shoulder to shoulder and giving them the confidence to wake up in something that is the truth and something that's believable. So just to absolutely commend all you've done.
Thank you. Great to catch up.
Yeah,
we'll see you again.